Everybody just needs to breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth. It's a lot going on, but you need to know that you are loved. Wherever you are and whoever you are loved. My name is Michelee Smith-Tynes. Hey, JD Lean. Good to see you here. My name is Michelee Smith-Tynes. I am a journalist. I am a teacher. I am an author. And like Shaka Khan's song, I am every woman. I do many things, and I do many things well. God has definitely blessed me. Today I'm going to be talking with Laura. And before she comes on, I want to say that most things that I do in my life, I do them very strategically and very intentionally. If you look, you can see I'm surrounded by elephants. Elephants are my favorite animal. They're my spirit animal, indeed. Elephants there. Elephant here. And so the purpose of me leveraging the concept of elephant today. Hey, Mind Spot, there you are. Let's get her on, then I'll keep talking about elephants. I do have a reason for talking about elephants. Hey, Mind Garden Therapist, good to see you. There you are, beautiful.
Hi.
I was just talking about elephants.
Oh my
I have
gosh.
a reason for everything that I do. Elephants are very communal.
Yeah.
They're wise. They're
Mm-hmm.
intelligent. They work together. They mourn the loss of someone in their herd, and they never
Mm-hmm.
forget anything.
Yeah. And they're extremely, as you said, extremely intelligent. They're actually my favorite animal. Did you know that?
See,
We're
we
so
are
in
sisters.
sync.
We didn't even know that. Yeah, I have all elephants today
Ah, that's
because
amazing.
I believe that you and I are showing an example of working together, and I think
Oh,
it's important. Yeah,
yeah, for
I didn't even
sure.
know it was
Yeah,
your favorite animal.
I know. Yeah. And I honestly do think that elephants have so many lessons to teach
They
us
do,
humans just as a society. Yeah,
right?
just so beautiful. Such gentle, strong, powerful creatures.
Right. So now
Yeah.
it's time for your introduction.
Okay, let me adjust.
I know it's kind of hard, huh? I
Yeah.
have one kind of above me. It's kind of interesting because I'm going like this.
You know what? I think I need to get a stand for these things. I think I need to
I
make
don't know
an
if there's a
investment.
Five Below near you, but I have an array of stands. I might take
Oh,
a picture
wow.
and put it on my feed. Yeah. Look,
Nice.
this is one of them. This is only $5.
That's such an investment. That's
I know,
awesome.
right?
Yeah, I
Hi,
definitely think I need to.
Misha Ra and Bree More Mindful. I like that, Bree More Mindful. Mental health coach joined. We got a lot of people joining us today. Can you see all of that?
Yep. Hi, everyone. So yeah, I guess I'll do a little intro of myself. Did you introduce yourself already?
Yes, I did with my elephants.
Um,
And I
so
introduced myself as a journalist, an author, and a teacher. So now we want to know about you.
Amazing. So, hi everyone. To those who don't know me, my name is Laura. I'm the Mind Health Spa on Instagram, and I am a grad student in clinical psychology. I also do a fair bit of research on trauma. And for me, I'm an immigrant from Taiwan to Canada. And so I really believe in the importance of just having culturally informed mental health, which is exactly why we're having this conversation today, is because of, I mean, not only because of the recent events, but also because we believe that this conversation with mental health and race and the intersectionality of both should carry on to like now and forever.
I agree. I totally agree. Well, one of the things that we were going to talk about today, and last week I'd started in my closet, and it was just, like I said, I believe in the metaphysical connections of things because I didn't want
Yeah.
anybody to see my
Mm,
messy apartment or the way I live sometimes when life gets out of control. And then I decided to come outside. So if you hear some ambient sounds, that's what that is. But it kind of became a metaphor. And I decided today I wanted to come outside as well because this needs to be brought out. I believe that you know, an honest and positive dialogue with pure intention can incite change. What do you
Absolutely.
think about that?
Yeah, definitely. And I think the more communication, the better amongst people of different groups, people of different social identities,
Mhm.
people with a willingness to learn and to educate. Because I don't think, for example, like with this movement, I don't think Black communities are supposed to be the only people that are advocating for this change
I
right
don't think
now.
so either. And
Exactly.
that indeed is what spurred me to contact you.
Yes, love
That
that.
spurred me to reach out because of your posts and just your understanding of the situation. Now, I do believe that sometimes there needs to be some inner healing within each community,
Hmm.
within maybe the Asian community, within the Black community. There are things that we need to be able to say to ourselves. But I do think that sometimes there need to be opportunities to invite specifically, and I will say white people in so that
Hmm.
they can learn because otherwise, you know, there's no learning process.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to say on that note, people are going to make mistakes. They're going to screw up.
Exactly.
I made a mistake today that Michelee
Yeah.
so generously pointed out.
Mhm.
And people will make mistakes and they will, it's inevitable because you can't let fear of making mistakes paralyze you
Exactly.
from doing the work. You make
Exactly.
mistakes and you realize that you're only human. You're here to learn, to show up to learn, and not to show up perfectly, but to show up the way that you can and be
Mhm.
open to
Mhm.
feedback and communication.
Exactly. Be
Yeah.
teachable, be coachable.
Yes,
Well,
teachable.
our topic for today, I kind of put it in terms of psychosomatic, but I believe more in metaphysical connections with things. So psychosomatic means basically like your stress and your things that are inflicted upon you, they start to impact your body. I also believe that there are metaphysical connections because I remember one time I kept saying I've calcified resentment. And then it turns out I have a kidney stone, you know. So do you think when it comes to the trauma, uh-oh, lost her, lost her. There she is. Request to be in the live video. Connection issues. Thanks for being there. Hey, KP Experience. Hey, Holistic Therapy. Lost
Hey,
you.
I'm
You
so
back?
sorry. I don't know
It's
why.
okay. That's okay. So we were talking about the psychosomatic connections
Hmm.
between the trauma and the things that just happen when you're just a Black person.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts or your expertise in that area?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you brought this up. We actually had a conversation about this earlier this week. One of the more important things to note about mental health is that mental health is not just up here. Mental health does not just affect people in their minds, in their brains. And when I hear people say, like, oh, it must be all in my mind that I'm feeling
Right.
depressed or I'm feeling anxious, that's actually I see where that's coming from, but that's actually not true. In
Mm-hmm.
reality, mental health affects the whole body.
Yes,
And
it
there's
does.
so much research out there showing things like depression, anxiety, PTSD, and traumatic stress does
Yes.
affect the physical body as well. So, yeah, there are a bunch of different symptoms that can manifest from trauma, from negative mental health, things
Mhm.
like headaches, things like
Yes.
stomach aches, muscle
Yes.
tension, lost
Yes.
weight, like people lose a significant amount of weight. Um,
Or gain it. Sometimes they gain it as well. Jay Lee
Absolutely.
says it manifests physically. Absolutely. We definitely agree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah. And you mentioned something really specific the other day, Michelee, in our
Uh-huh.
conversation. Do you want to speak a little bit about
I
that?
do. I do. And I had to make sure it's okay with my husband. For him, it manifests a lot as gastrointestinal issues. I'll just leave it right there.
Hmm.
Because, and I think I know the reasons why is because when you're stressed, you tend to want to eat junk food. And so it becomes a cycle. What I see, I'm stressed out. And it could be how you were treated differently at work or how you were pulled over. My husband's been pulled over and light shined in his face for no reason
Oh,
because he's darker skinned. So and then the thing we don't understand also is the things that are on the news and the things that are on social media are traumatizing.
Yeah.
It's traumatizing to watch that 24/7. So whoever's watching this, put yourself on a schedule, 15 to 30 minutes, and know the information that you're looking for. Because if you just have it running nonstop, it's going to affect you. So
Yeah.
for my husband, it tends to be gastrointestinal issues, which it ends up being the same for me because we're eating a lot of junk food because it's comfort food,
Yeah.
you know. But for one of my cousins, he said, my cousin Stilioso, he gets headaches, he has insomnia, and he suffers from muscle stiffness. So it's also important to know that it affects everybody differently.
Yeah, definitely. And what's interesting is that it affects everyone differently based on how accepted mental health is. So that's really, I mean, one really super interesting study that came out several years ago was looking at the symptoms of mental health in different cultures. And I think they compared Chinese, someone can correct me on this, but I think they compared Chinese culture to Western culture, and how in Western culture, mental health consequences are manifest more mentally. So like maybe they report like worried thoughts all the time, rumination, lack of caring for, you know, different activities. And in Chinese cultures, in this sample, they actually report more physical symptoms. So more like, yeah, stomach aches, headaches, muscle tension, everything that you mentioned there, which is so interesting because in Asian cultures, physical symptoms are much more accepted than mental health, right?
Wow.
And so there's a huge stigma around, you know, having a mental health disorder, and people actually manifest these physical symptoms even though they're from mental health causes.
Right. And then the thing is, like, anxiety isn't always considered a mental health issue unless it becomes generalized anxiety disorder. And I'm gonna give myself props because I do have a book on Amazon about anxiety. It's called Taming the Beast of Anxiety. It just uploaded, uploaded, and it's available for purchase. But the thing is, anxiety is not considered to be a thought disorder, but also it's not thought about the way that anxiety, especially compressed over time, can affect the body. So I'm looking at in the comments, KP Experience, I actually interviewed him this week, and he said his is gastrointestinal as well, and he doesn't even eat junk food.
Yeah.
And so the thing is, like, in my interview with him, I talked about how I was racially profiled at only 14 years old. And then also I had an incident only 2 or 3 years ago where I'm pulled over and a police officer says, well, you were driving behind me and I don't know what the problem was, why you didn't just want to pass me. I mean, why would you not know why I would not want to pass you? And then I was asked, have I ever gotten into trouble? These things, the rumination, and I want to know what you think about this. The rumination, sometimes it comes with, I should have said X, Y, and Z, or I should have done X, Y, and Z. What do you think about that?
Yeah, and I think what you bring to the table is so, so relevant, especially when it comes to racism, because the problem is that racism is so widely perpetuated in almost everything we do, right? And so a lot of people, we talked about microaggressions last week and how, you know, pulling someone over just because they're Black is a huge microaggression, even if that person isn't aware of it. It really
ends up turning into a major aggression too.
Exactly. I mean, look at what's going on in the news and what has happened lately. And so when someone is so used to that type of behavior, they start invalidating their own experience, right? Because if you think about a child who gets something, like gets bullied all the time, for example, and they think like, well, this is actually wrong. Like, I feel hurt by these actions and I don't like it. And everyone else is like, no, this is actually how it is. You're wrong. Like, you're the person that's being too sensitive right now. This is just how life is. Then of course they're going to suppress and they're going to ruminate and they're going to think like, well, okay, maybe I was being too sensitive. Maybe I was being too, you know, like maybe I'm being crazy right now.
That happens to me all the time. That happens. Like, do I say something because especially when you're on the job, you know,
Mm-hmm.
it's like you kind of shut down because you don't really know what to say sometimes, but you're human. You know, you don't want to fly off the handle either. You know, we have
Exactly. Or
to. So
when you're with a police officer, you like,
I'm
what do you
telling
do?
you,
Like,
it's really hard. It's really
yeah.
hard for me, even, and I've carried this throughout my life, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm a Black woman, and I think part of what you were saying is like for my husband who's on now, he just came on, so hopefully he won't get
Hi.
upset. His name is Dion. Hi, Dion. Hopefully he won't get upset, but sometimes I think that he has had to, and I'll get to my terminologies in a minute, he's had to pack so
Mm-hmm.
much that
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I look at things and I get upset, and he's just like, well, you want to include everybody, and you know, maybe they didn't mean it quite that way.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's like you can't even realize it. You know, it's like you're so used to operating. And this is another thing about the elephant, you know, they've done these studies where if you put a ring around the elephant's leg and you chain it up, 10, 15 years later, um, you know, if you actually take the chain off, the elephant remembers that boundary, you
Yeah.
know, and
Yeah.
that's heartbreaking. And I think that's the way we function as people sometimes. So Zach Helmer says, we are all human. We all know right from wrong. But honestly, Zach, I honestly sometimes don't think so. And until we can have open dialogues like the ones that Laura and I are having, we
Mm-hmm.
don't even get a chance to understand what each other are thinking,
Yeah.
you know. And I started this little series that I'm going to do called Reteach America. Part of the problem is that you're in Canada, but I'm in America,
Mm-hmm.
and history is not being taught correctly. World history is not taught
Mm-hmm.
correctly.
Yeah.
You know, I taught about Black Wall Street, where whites didn't want us involved with them, and we segregated ourselves and had a wonderful community with airports, hospitals,
Wow.
schools. And it was actually, you know, in the race war, actually planes flew overhead dropping dynamite. That community was destroyed
Oh my
and
God.
it was never rebuilt. And then
Yeah.
people say, oh, well, you know, Black people. Thanks, Zach. Zach says he's here to listen. Same to
Aw.
you. Same to you, Zach.
We're all
Let me
here
do
to
the little
listen.
namaste. Thank you. That's what we've got to do. People
Mm-hmm.
don't understand, you know, all of that history
Yeah.
because nobody's brave enough to tell it to them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Blushy Ginger says, I'm in Canada too. I wonder how much we don't learn in school. And
Yes,
I mean, it's astounding how much, not just Canada, not just the US, but all over the world,
all over the
how much
world.
we don't know about our
Don't
own
know.
countries, you know?
I
Like,
know.
I'm
Like
raised in
on my
America.
Reteach America, I also taught about Escrava Anastasia. She was a Brazilian slave,
Mm,
and she was born to a slave mother. She was beautiful, light skinned, you know, had blue eyes, and
yeah.
she was treated so, she was so abused by her slave master. And
Mm-hmm.
I said that part of my trauma is when I started seeing Black people walking around with those face masks, her spirit came to me.
Mm,
And so she's actually considered a patron saint in Brazil. But we don't know that. We
yeah.
don't know how this trauma gets dug up in various areas. I mean, we're talking
Yeah.
about a pandemic and people walking around with masks on, you know?
Mm, yeah, that's an interesting point. And I
Yeah.
also remember last week we spoke about a little bit about Black history in America and how a lot of people think that it started with slavery 400 years
Yes.
ago.
Yes.
And in reality, it actually didn't. Can you speak a
Did
little bit
not.
about that too?
I can. Actually, I misquoted last week, so I want to correct that because I am a journalist, so that's what we do. Um, Last week, I had credited the book. Let me see. I just want to make sure I find it. The name of the book is They Came Before Columbus, and it
Hmm.
talks about the Olmecs, who were quite obviously Black people.
Right.
Okay. So it talks about how the African presence was already here in the Americas. And actually, there are even other books about how the African presence helped Columbus and others to get to the Americas. So that book is They Came Before Columbus. The author's name is Ivan Van Sertima.
Okay.
But the other author who I incorrectly attributed that to, you can also learn a lot from him. The name of that book is The African Origin of Civilization, Myth or Reality. And his name is Cheikh Ana Diop. And I learned about these people in my Pan-African Studies classes. And this, I'm so glad that you opened the door to that, because this is what I'm saying. When I went to my Pan-African Studies classes and I got my degree, it was a safe space.
Right.
It was a protected, nurturing nest for me to know who I really am.
Right.
And for me to be able to combat that people think that Black people were animals, and that people think that Black people are lazy and unintelligent and uneducated. It was a safe space. So that safe space needs to be protected. But this is where I'm saying I'm stepping up now, because the world needs to know that. That's world history. That doesn't just belong to me. It doesn't just belong to other Pan-Africans. It belongs to the world. So then that way we can adjust our lens for how we see each other.
Yeah. And there's a responsibility for people to become educated. There's a responsibility on the education system to provide that education. And unfortunately, you know, if it's not given to us, we have to seek it, which is why it's so important right now to seek people of color who are educators, to seek those resources online. You know, people are putting that out there. And you need to just Google and take courses and find out more, because we
reach out to me. You can reach out to me. I'm sure you can reach out to Laura. Because if it's okay, I do want to say I had been referring to you as Asian, you know, and I feel like it's my duty to find out what your, you know, how you define yourself. Because quite frankly, I don't prefer the term African American. That's me personally. I prefer the term Pan-African. I would love to be known as a Pan-African. If I were to identify myself, because Pan-Africanism deals with Africans as they moved away from Africa. Everyone knows that civilization as a whole, humanity began in Africa. But when we're talking about the darker skinned people that migrated, you know, that's what that whole thing is about. So if I'm talking to someone who's Colombian or Dominican or Puerto Rican or from Brazil, we have some similar struggles. But when I say I'm African American, that's putting a border. And I think likewise, if you, I'm not sure, I would like for you to tell me actually, if you meet someone else who is of another ethnicity, is it sometimes safe to have the commonality of using the term Asian?
So I think that's a great question. I think
I meant to bring this up next week, but it just came up. So
it just happened. Just, you know, let it happen. Yeah, that's an interesting question. And I can only speak on behalf of my personal experience.
That's what I always say too. That's what I always say. I only speak for me.
Exactly. So I can't represent all, you know,
I can't do that. Yes.
I find it really hard. I don't know about you, Michelee, when people come up to me, and I get this all the time, when people come up to me and they say like, oh, where are you from? And so
I get that all the time.
It's really, it's difficult because I kind of script my answer now. I say something like, oh, well, my family is from China and some of my other family members are from Taiwan, but I am a Canadian. Like my passport is Canadian. I actually have a joint passport, but it's so hard because we live in a world where we're getting increasingly global. And by that, when someone says to me, where are you from? And I say like, okay, well, I'm Taiwanese. My family's from Taiwan. And they immediately say something like, oh, but your English is so good. Or they say something like, when I say like, oh, I'm Canadian, say I'm traveling in the States or something, and someone says, oh, where are you from? And yeah, I say I'm Canadian. They say something like, okay, no, but like, where are you really from? And I
Mm-hmm.
think that question is damaging because it implies that I don't belong in Canada, you know?
Right,
And I think,
right,
same with what you said about like, oh, you're so articulate for being
right.
Black. That is so, so damaging. And I think, that goes back to the point of like, we do know what's right or wrong, generally,
Yes,
yes, when it's really
yes.
easy to identify, like, killing a person for being Black
Exactly.
is
Killing an
wrong.
American citizen at the hands of a public servant.
Yeah.
That's pretty cut and dried.
That's pretty, extreme. But what about
Mhm.
asking people like, oh no, but you don't look Canadian. Where are you really from? And I can
Right,
see how is that can be so damaging when the person themselves isn't aware of that.
right.
So I do have so much trouble. I identify with the term Asian. I also
Yeah,
identify with the term Canadian. I also
yeah.
identify with the term, Chinese, Taiwanese. I think we can be, or at least for me, I can be all of those
Be
things.
multidimensional, right?
Exactly. I love that
Exactly.
term. Yeah,
Exactly.
multidimensional humans are
So I think for
complex.
myself, I love the term Black. I'm not offended by that at all because to
Mhm.
me, Black is ether. Black is ephemeral. Black is soul. It's beyond, it's
I
beyond
love
the
that.
color, it's beyond melanin, it's beyond anything.
Hmm.
So I personally don't mind that. I do not prefer the term African American.
Hmm.
Other people do, and
Yeah,
that's fine. But that's what I'm saying. I can't speak for the entire Black race. That's
yeah.
too much for any person to bear. Not one person can bear all of that.
Hmm.
Let me see. I also like um, in the 70s, they toyed around with Afro American. I don't mind
Hmm.
that so much. But Africa is a continent, so
Yeah,
that's not breaking anything down for me.
yeah.
And I did a DNA test, and I want to see your reaction because most people are like, "Yeah, I could see that."
Okay.
I'm largely Filipino.
I'm very surprised.
Oh, okay, see, thank you. Thank you. There have been a lot of people that are just like, "Oh, okay. Yeah.
Hmm.
You're having trouble with that?" Like I'm
Hmm.
like, "Power to the people, I must come from," and I do. Like the one DNA test I took. Now, you got to also remember there's going to be slightly varying results. So I'm going to take another one. But I was like largest percentage was Filipino,
Hmm.
also Guyana, which is South America, also Ethiopia, but beyond that, Turkish and Scottish.
Wow.
So I'm just like, my ancestors were globe-trotting jet setters, okay?
That's
Like,
amazing.
but see, then there's the thing. When I say that to you, there's a different heart space because maybe
Hmm.
we have a little bit more commonality than we had when we just looked at each other. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? When
Yeah.
you just look at a person you don't know. So I partly agree with what you're saying. Like, you can't say, oh, well, you don't look American.
Yeah.
What the heck does that mean?
And that
But
stigma
I
is
do
problematic.
open, like I said, any dialogue based on pure intention can
Hmm.
incite change. I don't know. I just believe that in my soul.
Hmm.
So I believe, was it respectful the way that I asked you this morning what your, you know, I think I asked you your nationality.
Hmm.
Did that feel respectful to you? Because
Yeah,
I,
I
I
think
don't,
so.
I
I
mean, because I
mean,
really do want to know.
I think what is important for me, at least, to know when I get those sorts of things, and of course, again, I only speak for myself, is
Right,
that I expect people to make mistakes and I expect people to say things
right,
like, where are you from? What nationality are you? It's okay if it's not perfect. But I also think that if I tell someone, like, oh, I'm from all different places, I actually have a lot of trouble answering that question, to not push it, and to be humble about it and say, like, oh, I'm sorry for asking that in that way. How can like, how can I meet you where you are, or how can I do the
right,
work, or just even like not ask, just do the work to find out what is the quote unquote right thing to do.
right.
Even though, I mean, I don't love that term because I don't think there's a correct thing to do, but I do
Which
think
term?
that the right thing to do.
I know. I don't like that either.
Yeah, but I do
Because
think that there are things that people do that do harm other people, like harm people of color on a different level. And you don't have to shame yourself if you really didn't know. Like this morning I misspoke, and Michelee pointed out my mistake, and she pointed out why she
And
didn't
then let's
prefer the
again
term.
say you misspoke for me. Like I said, there are other Black people that would be amazed and in awe and would love that.
Yeah,
But that's just what happened for me personally.
exactly. Yeah.
And in some other spaces or in some other ways, like, I mean, that might be confusing for you to now say, you know, "Oh, well, she likes the term Black." But I think if it's like, for some reason, if it's like, oh, she's a Black journalist or she's a Black advocate or she's a Black something, it's no, honestly, quite frankly, I'm an advocate for all of humanity because this is a scourge. This is a stain on what I thought was my America. But now in talking to you, I'm seeing it's your Canada and it's our world. This is
Sadly, it is.
ugly. This is ugly. If we don't do what we can, and maybe me just sitting here saying some words is enough for some people, but if we don't do what we can, we're leaving a legacy for the next generation, and we can't do that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what you said was for me. That was for me. I was uncomfortable with it, and I expressed that to you. But that's still that dialogue based on pure intention.
Exactly. And I think sometimes what happens with a lot of people, and I'm not excluding myself here, what happens for a lot of people is they get very defensive or they get upset and they say like, okay, well now I don't even want to do anything because I don't want to step out of line and I don't want to hurt people. And I think if it comes from the heart and if you're really trying to educate yourself and do the work, and if you mess up, when I think the important part is if you do mess up, which you're bound to, and someone points it out, or you realize after, like, oh, I have knowledge now that speaks to how I messed up before, just correct it. And, you know, just you can accept it with an open heart and be gentle with yourself. And I think that a lot of self-compassion can be really helpful.
Oh my gosh. Blushy Ginger says, frank conversations like this raise my faith in humanity. And you as well raise mine. Thank you, Blushy. R. Navarre says hello. Asian Mental Health Collective, I love it, is here. Social Media by Sarah. Let's see, so many comments. What is the other DNA test you will take? I only know of 23andMe. I'm going to take Ancestry. The other one that I took before was called Connect Me, I think it was. And trust me, I mean, I was like shocked. Because honestly, this is another thing that a lot of Black people think is that they have a lot of Native American blood, and we do. That's not to discount that, but I was always told that it was a lot of Native American, and there probably is on my mother's side. So that particular test might have done more with my father's side, who's a very short, you know, Black man who was an orphan. So we don't really know what his genetic makeup was, but you know, let me see. Oh, somebody said, now I want to know the Filipino percentage. That's my friend. Let me see. I don't know if you guys have questions. This goes by so fast for us and everything is important. Lucy Jew says, thank you for sharing. This is so valuable. That's what we're hoping for. That's what we want. I don't see any questions. Oh, Blushy Ginger says Black is soul. That's it. That's it right there.
So true.
And then Christy Mariko says, passport, ethnicity, and spoken language used to match. But now that we are a more global society, those don't always match. In fact, they usually don't anymore, I feel. And that's true. And I don't think they ever did. The more of us that take ancestry tests, then we really start to see, you know, Black people are coming up with, you know, white people in their ancestry. White people are coming up with Black people in their ancestry. It's a very intricate story, you know. I think. I don't know. Did you see any comments that you wanted to respond to, or did you have any questions you wanted to answer?
I actually want to speak to the comment about passport and ethnicity. And I think that's so important to note because in psychology, there's a phenomenon that it's called the in-group, out-group phenomenon. And I think this is so important.
Say it one more time. I'm so sorry.
The in-group, out-group phenomenon.
Okay,
And I
okay.
think it's so important to note and be aware of, because as human beings, as people who have been pretty much like passed down through generations and generations of evolution, it actually is in our survival to protect our in-group, right? So it's in our survival to protect people that look like us and behave like us. And so
Mm-hmm.
we might think of those people as people within our culture, right? So I might be more tempted to protect people that look Chinese, for example, that speak Chinese. But we also have to remember that we don't live in this world where it's like, we have to fight for, I mean, we still do, but no lions, no bears, no
I'm so sorry. There's a blue jay that just landed right there. I'll tell you about that later. Go on. Go on. I'm sorry.
And so I think we can rise above evolution and be really aware of this phenomenon that lets us say, like, everyone who doesn't look like me is a threat, because we don't live in a tribal society where other people who look like us in general, I'm just saying in
Right,
general, in like, North American society every day,
right,
people who don't look like us aren't going to want to kill us.
right.
And so we need to remember that everyone has this in-group, out-group bias. I'm going to be biased against people that don't look like me, and other people are going to be biased against people that don't look like them, because they see that they're the out-group, and I see people who look like me are the in-group. And I get fiercely protective when there's like hate crimes against Asian Americans, for example.
Right, right.
I think what you said about those DNA tests is really interesting there, because
I know, right?
if
It shifts everything.
it does, yeah, because if we realize, hey, the world is global, like we actually have so much in common. Like, if I'm like 1/16th Native American, for example,
Right,
or like one
right,
Mexican, I'm actually in their in group now. We
right,
can use that
right.
to our advantage. And I'm not going to excuse behavior that discriminates against the out group. I think that's so
Mhm,
important still. But I think it's
mhm,
important to remember that as human beings, we're going to have these tendencies. It's just psychological, but we can
mhm,
rise above that.
mhm. Let me see. I see Elsie Sun said good point. Now the outgroup seems to be directed towards the whites, which is valid. But I don't think that's not my perspective. My perspective is I love the term that my friend KP Experience brought to my attention. I think somebody else used it as well. It's not really black versus white, and it's not white versus black. It's everybody against systemic racism. Like if you have a badge, and see, the thing is not, I can't determine whether or not you're going to be a racist. If you choose to be a racist and you want to be a racist in the comfort of your own home, that's fine. But there are laws that are supposed to protect your racist behavior.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm having a bad day, I can't act out because I'm having a bad day. I have to be a professional. And
Mhm.
beyond that, I have to be a good citizen. I can't take my bad day out on somebody who's walking down the street. And I
Mhm.
also cannot use my authority to bend the arm of someone I'm supposed to be protecting. So
Exactly.
that to me is the difference. I don't know.
There's a comment here that says, it's not black versus the police either. It's definitely not. And I think
Right. It's
too
I
is
don't even think to me it's not even against the police per
that
se.
that's
For me
exactly
personally,
what I
like
said.
people are talking about defunding the police. I don't really think that's the best idea. What I do think is that there needs to be a fire them all and rehire only the ones that meet the standards of the citizens they serve. So
Mhm.
somebody asked, is it kind of like voting for them? Well, maybe. I don't know what that looks like. I'm just telling you what my thoughts are because I'm not a politician. But I think it needs to be rooted out because those old boys clubs and all of these different little, you know, hierarchies of racism within systems that are supposed to serve its people, it just doesn't work. What
Yeah.
do you think?
I actually read somewhere an article a while ago about how the police in America, and I'm going to ask you all to, keep me accountable here. I don't know if this is true, but the police in America were actually founded to capture slaves.
That's the same thing my friend said. He's down there, the KP experience. If you get a chance, watch what I interviewed of him this past week.
Okay.
I didn't know that, but I
Yeah.
did see I did see something historical to catch runaway slaves.
Mm-hmm.
I think you and I can put each other to task and research that.
Okay, yeah, I definitely will follow up about that, and hopefully we can discuss it next week. But I
Yeah.
think that that's so dangerous because then you have a foundation of this organization that's inherently racist. And even
Right.
if you put in police trainings, even if you do a lot of things to try and combat that, the skeleton of the organization is still going to have its effects. So those are my 2 cents. I also think that there definitely needs to be more representation on police forces.
Oh, definitely. The
100%
police forces, I feel,
police
should be
officers.
made up of the citizens in that community. I feel like, you shouldn't be commuting to get to work. The community needs to be policed by the community. That's just, like I said, that's
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm aware that we have 20 minutes left, and we brought up something earlier.
seriously
A
going by
little
so
bit.
fast.
Time flies with you.
I know.
So we brought
Okay.
up something earlier that was really interesting. We touched on it a little bit. Can you speak a little bit about colorism and how that's different than racism?
Sure. I don't I think it's a different side of the same beast is what I always say. It's a different side of the same beast. It is an after effect, I believe, of colonialism. Um, where and actually there's a video with Dr. Sarah L. Webb that you guys can check out on my feed. Just go to my feed and just scroll through. I'm trying to figure out how to get them posted to the top. But anyway, what would happen was there would be instances where a few, slaves came and then the slave masters would rape the women and then there would be children. Those lighter skinned children would be allowed to stay in the house and the darker skinned children generally would be outside. And so when you talk about colorism, there's that as a history, but it also has a root in hair bias, which I'm going to be doing with another friend of mine. Hair bias. There's the one drop rule to determine whether or not you're Black. And then there's also the paper bag test. So we don't have a lot of time. You guys look those things up. But when you're dealing with colorism, actually, all you're doing is dividing and conquering.
Yeah.
Because another side of that same beast, another shade of what colonialism did is let's see, how do I say this? It curated the term white. And when white included Irish, when did white include Jewish? When did white include Italian? Because it was not always included that way. But when it was determined by that ruling class, that oppressive class, should I say, that they could garner more people when they needed them, to use that terminology of white, then that happened too. But it's still a different side of the same beast. We're dealing with the same exact monster, the treacherous, ugly beast that we all have got to put to its demise. We can't,
Absolutely.
allow it to continue.
Yeah.
So in just a few minutes, that's all I can say about it. But maybe you said you're going to let me take over your channel, right? Maybe I'll make a video about that.
So just a sneak peek. We haven't announced it yet, but we are going to do on my account a whole day story takeover where Michelee is going to take over my story, answer your questions, talk a little bit more about racism and mental health and whatever it is she wants to talk about. So do stay tuned for that. I also see a comment saying, will you please let us know when these conversations will take place, especially hair bias? Absolutely.
I will. I'll put it on my feed. Like I said, I'm still trying to figure out how to get up there. And if you guys could send me your email address, I'm trying to get an email club thing going on. So that way I can just let everybody know at once. But I definitely will post that one as well.
Awesome. Yeah. And I will also try and post when Michelee goes live and when she records videos, because she just has so much amazing stuff to give us.
Yeah.
She's doing this on her own time. No one, she doesn't need to do this for us. And so please
Yes.
send her some love, give her,
Mhm.
your appreciation.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so I also wanted to express that colorism, it basically, I mean, it's so harmful, you know, and it doesn't just happen in America either.
Thank you. That's what I
And
wanted to
so
say.
in
Yes.
in Canada, I mean, not even just in North America, but I'm
Yes.
thinking in a lot of Asian cultures, it's
Philippines.
so valued to make your features look more white, more
Yes.
Caucasian. And
Yes.
I think that it really has implications for mental health. So
It
there's
does.
beauty products that are like skin whitening
It
creams,
does.
bleach your skin. You can get actually surgery. This is really common in Asia. You can get
I've heard about that.
on your eyes to make
Yes.
bigger, to have double eyelids, to get like
Yes.
there's a lot of girls in Korea, they get nose jobs to make their,
Christy Mariko said in Japan too.
in Japan it's super prevalent, in Taiwan it's super prevalent. And so you have to really question, like, why is that? Why do people want to look white? And it's so implicit. No one says like, hey, bleach your skin so you can look more Caucasian.
I know, right?
Really
That's
subtle.
true.
And I
That's
think
true.
this totally has implications for mental health, because as a teenager, growing up in a Western society as an Asian, I hated the way I looked. And I mean, this is similar to like body image and all of that, but it's different because it's so embedded into your race, right? I
It
hated the
is.
way that my hair was black, and that, you know, like my
Really?
eyes were a certain way. And I
Mhm.
think that to me is internalized racism right there.
It's also in turn it breeds self-hatred and self-loathing, and that's the thing that really bothers me.
Exactly. And so I think that's so dangerous, especially for young people who are growing up in this society where no one explains, like, hey, this is colorism. It actually came
That's the
from
thing.
slavery. And you're
Yes.
you're allowed to love yourself for being
Yes.
black. You're allowed to love yourself for looking Asian, you know?
Yes.
And no one told me that growing up. So
And that's why this is so important, to open up the dialogue.
yeah.
Sometimes people are so traumatized that they don't even have words for it.
Mm,
Sometimes I've had anxiety so bad that all I could do was, if somebody says, how do you feel? I don't even know. Like, give me an emoji. Maybe an emoji can tell you. Or maybe
a
I can
song.
find a meme. Like, seriously, like, I can't even give words to it. So if you hear what somebody says and you internalize it and you're like, that's it. That's how I feel. There's also a lot of colorism in India. There's an entire caste system
Exactly. Yeah.
based on skin color. And
Mhm.
I feel like a lot of that is a result of colonialism as well.
Absolutely.
And it's not just colonialism in terms of resources and stealing people. It's also in terms of stealing culture. We got to
Mhm.
remember that's what happened too.
Mhm. Yep.
Entire cultures were stolen, so that, you know, when you look at your features in the mirror, the thing that we didn't realize, you and I never realized, we were going through the same thing. Well,
Mm.
this hair is so curly, I wish it could be straight. And then some other black woman is looking at my hair saying, I wish I had hair like hers. And then
Mm.
some other, you know, Asian woman is looking at some other Asian woman's skin saying, oh, I wish her hair was like, I wish my skin was like hers.
Yeah,
It's all, like I said, it's different sides of the same animal.
exactly. Yeah, and just as harmful, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. There's also a term called passing, where I think a lot
Ooh.
of people, I was only educated about this year actually, but
Uh-huh.
some people do have the privilege to pass as a white person, even if
Yes,
they're not
if it's a privilege.
ethnically. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we
There's a movie.
have to,
I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you. It's
no,
an
no.
old movie called Imitation of Life. Everybody check it out. It's an old
What's
movie.
it called? Can you repeat it?
Imitation of Life.
Imitation
And
of
if I
life.
get it wrong, I'll let you guys know next week. But
Okay.
Imitation of Life. You're gonna cry. Get some popcorn and some tissues. Anyway, go on.
Is it about passing?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Passing was a huge situation. I mean, that was something that
Mhm.
a lot of people had to do to feel like they could emotionally survive.
Yeah.
But there were some Black people that were very brave, like Lena Horne. She probably could have passed easily. Look her up as well.
Mhm.
Um, and Charles Drew probably could have passed very easily, but they did not.
Mhm.
So yes, passing is another another situation, and also there are a lot of people that were raised in situations like that. You know,
Mhm. Mhm.
it's just trauma that just gets passed down, and so that's why I'm saying I just feel like, you know, I'm doing what I can to end it, and I feel like you are too,
Yeah.
because in the end we all have red blood, you know.
Mhm.
And like the things I've discussed with you today show more commonalities between each other than we thought we had before.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Different, growing up in different countries, different
Yeah,
cultures, but we have very similar experiences. And I think it's a fine line to balance recognizing that people have different experiences to you that might not, you know, like we're both people of color, but we're different
right,
people of color. And so we obviously will have very different experiences. And
right,
we also have similar experiences, you know? So it's
right,
responsibility
exactly.
to draw out those similarities and to recognize those differences and to say like, hey, I don't understand exactly what your experience is, Michelee, but I
Mhm.
want to, and I stand with you.
Exactly. We're getting
Yeah.
a lot of hearts. Do you see that, girl? We love you guys too. It's a few comments that I wanted to somebody said normalize learning new things, and
Mhm.
Heart Skills says The Human Stain is another good movie about that. I need to check that out.
Nice.
Um let me see. Somebody said they want hair like mine. Believe it or not, it took me years to accept this hair the way it is. Like I said, I think a lot of times. Oh, now this one is a great note to end on because you only have a few minutes. Blushy Ginger says, I was feeling very heavy about the world before this. You've put
Oh,
a smile of hope on my heart, in my heart. We need conversations like these. Thank you.
we
Thank you
will
so much.
continue these.
That's why I do this. That means everything to me. I'm willing to step out of my comfort zone. And you guys have no clue. Laura is rocking it. You've got no clue how she's stepping out of her comfort zone. And we're doing this for you guys so that, you know, I feel like people need to see our faces together. We need to model what it's supposed to be. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, I
yeah.
love that. So we have about 8 minutes left. Drop your last minute questions here, and feel free to contact us. I can speak for myself only. Feel
Yeah.
free to contact us if you have any questions at all. I can try and point you towards resources,
Mm-hmm.
resources made by people of color. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Michelee, do
So
you?
someone said they wish they could stay longer. Remember, this is going to stay in my feed and probably in Laura's feed as well because I always upload mine. And you know, you guys, you know what? If you this might be a good thing, Laura, that we can always open with or always present is if
Mhm.
you have a question that you're afraid to ask, DM me. You
Yeah.
know, if you know, and I can let you, even if you don't know if it's a question you want to ask somebody else, I might be able to help you phrase it because I still stand on an open dialogue with pure intention can incite change. I firmly believe that.
Yeah.
So ask us. That's why we're here. That's why we're doing this.
So someone said, can we just message via Instagram or do you prefer email? I personally
You
prefer
can
Instagram.
message me via Instagram, but
Mhm.
I'm trying to build. I hate to call it an email list, but that is what it is. I'm trying to build a list so that you know I can just shoot you guys out the schedules and stuff like that.
Mhm. Okay.
I wanted
So,
to let me see. I wanted to show a few things before we go. Your post from today. I know you guys probably can't see it. That's your post, Laura.
that is, I see a black
And
squared love.
her page is the minds. Say it. I'm so sorry.
The
What
mind
is it?
health spot. You'll find it up there
I know, right?
near your
The
name.
Mind Health Spot. And she said, why am I seeing therapists on Instagram post about Black Lives Matter? Isn't therapy supposed to be political? So I want to show you what I posted probably about a week before I met you, Laura. Just to show you, this is a universal theme. I posted, this is not a political issue. This is an American travesty. This is a human rights issue. That's what I was saying about George Floyd. And then I meet you when I find out about Regis and also Brianna here. You know, there are so many instances of this that, you know, we have to pull together. So I wanted to just say some of the titles that you have on your feed, which are so amazing. So she says, Psychology Behind the Violence by Police on Black Bodies. Because yes, you're hurting my body. Just the way that's phrased is brilliant. Racism leads to trauma, and mental health is a race issue.
It
So you
is
guys got to check out her feed, because you know what? The thing is,
true.
you know, if we have someone that's able to see beyond the facade, because that's all it is really, it's facades and illusions, and actually be able to get us the help that we need in order to exercise our voice, we have to use it. You want
Absolutely.
to talk any more about your wonderful posts here?
Yeah, I mean, feel free to check it out. I feel like a lot of people have been DMing me and just commenting about a whole bunch of things that are happening in the world right now. And I want to speak a little bit about those matters. My latest post, yes, is about, you know, a lot of people reaching out to me and saying like, hey, why are you, my battery is low. Good thing we're
Mine
ending soon
too,
because
but
I
we're gonna
might drop
make it.
out.
We're gonna make it. We're gonna make it.
But yeah, a lot of people are reaching out to me saying like, well, why are you just posting about Black Lives Matter? I've had some collaboration requests saying like, hey, do you want to post about anxiety? Do you want to post about, you know, autism? And I'm saying right now it's my priority to prioritize
Right,
this issue, and it's
right.
a priority to prioritize it forever. But I think a lot of people don't understand that in therapy there's this kind of myth that like people need to be fully neutral, and I think I get where it
Right,
comes from, and I've been educated by that
right,
framework as well, that you know you're not supposed to, as a therapist, put your own beliefs on someone else's. You're
mm-hmm,
supposed to meet the client where they're at, but
mm-hmm.
therapy and mental health advocates have a duty to not only heal, like help heal the trauma, but also prevent the trauma. And if
Yes,
them is causing trauma, we need to make sure that we do all it takes to try and dismantle racism so it doesn't further keep traumatizing people. And that means
right,
educating ourselves, educating others. It means, you know, using our voice to advocate like
right.
here. So I so appreciate you, Michelle. We
Yeah.
have time for
Thank
one more question.
Well, before we do, I just want to tell everybody that my book is actually on Amazon. So just enter my name. It's called Taming the Beast of Anxiety by me, Michelee Smith Tynes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's just an overall workbook. Everybody deals with anxiety in one form or another. So I'm just really proud. The ebook is there. The paperback will be available by Wednesday. So I'm so excited about that.
I'm
One
gonna
of
order.
many books. So did you find another question?
Yeah, so someone said, I'm a little unsure about something. I'm seeing a lot about not burdening Black, Indigenous people of color with questions. I'm still trying to learn the nuance of this.
Right.
Thank you so much for asking that. I think so many people, I mean, so many people have asked
I
me,
know.
I'm not even Black.
What is the name of that person?
Blushy Ginger.
Oh yeah,
Thank
Blessy
you so much.
Ginger. She's our friend. She's our friend from way back. Blessy, let me tell you, inbox me anything and I can kind of help you navigate it. Like I said, I don't speak for all Black people, but the issue is, like I said, we have protested, we've done sit-ins, we've written legislatures, we've given up our lives. So many of us my age or older are just tired. And that's why I am so honored to be able to work with Laura, because until people of other races start stepping out and saying, you know what, this is just flat out wrong. This is
Mhm.
flat out wrong. And then in addition to that, not knowing the history,
Yeah.
judging by the last page of the book, like why are there Asian Lives Matter groups, and why are there, you know, Asian pride groups and Black pride groups, but no white pride groups? There are reasons why.
Yeah.
And so until we can have the dialogue, nobody understands. So I'm with you. I'm one of those people. You can inbox me and I'll do my very best to help you craft
Mhm.
a good question to ask someone in particular, or to answer your question. I'm the open one. I can tell you that. I can't speak for anybody else.
I love that. And I
Hmm.
fear that we're going to get cut off soon, but I also
I
want
know.
to ask, I think that's a valid question because a lot of people in the Black community are hurting. This is an
Yes.
attack on their people. And I think it's safe to say if someone like Michelee says something like, I'm open to questions, please ask me questions. Please feel
Hmm.
free to ask questions,
Hmm.
but don't just randomly ask a Black creator on your feed questions if they haven't made the time and space available to do
Hmm.
so. And I also
Because they're healing. That's the thing to know too, is they're healing. I'm sorry, we got 27 seconds. Do we want to just say bye and
they
continue next
still
week?
countdown.
I'm
Okay.
excited about next week.
So
This
stay
is so
tuned for
good.
next week. I love these conversations. They seriously
Me,
fuel my soul. Thank you all for your questions.
me too. Love you guys. Love each
Okay.
other, please. Love each other. Love can save the day. Never forget that.